Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Tucker. Welcome to the February 2021 Marketo User Group Roundup session. I'm joined here with my co-host, Mr. Warren Stokes, who is in brand new settings in London, England. Welcome, Warren.
Okay. Hey, yeah, thanks.
And then also our guest for this month is Milwaukee Marketo User Group leader Jay Schnowelder. And I swear I butchered that again now that we said it. We've been practicing this.
I think you did.
No, I've heard worse. Schoenwalder. It wasn't bad.
Okay, thanks. I feel better now. But anyway, anyway, so happy to kind of have you here with us again, Jay. And Jay's been kind of a regular in terms of the meetings, so we're glad to have you here. And just to kind of cover
Definitely,
off.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah. And I wanted to acknowledge, I think this is the first time I've talked to you guys since they announced the new champions class for 2021, which both of you are a part of. Warren, I think this is your second time. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Michael,
I'm surprised
first time.
myself.
Oh, I don't think anybody's surprised. I just want to say congratulations. Especially Michael being your first time. I think you guys are doing a lot. Definitely over the last year or so, bringing a lot of these mugs together with these roundups and getting a lot of different people involved. It's really been good. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I can't tell you how much it meant the world to me. And I don't know if they timed this on purpose or not, but they named the announcement on my birthday of all days. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm getting a little bit older. Maybe I'll get a free cup of coffee at Starbucks today. So that'll be really nice. And then I look at my email and I get this note that I've made the champion class. And just to kind of put some perspective into this for anybody who hasn't, I'm just playing with the settings here a little bit, but for anybody who hasn't learned about the champions, you should apply. I can't tell you in the past month how much this has just changed my practice and the work that I'm doing in Marketo and some of the doors that it's opening up. I am just forever grateful to the community and to Warren and people like yourself for the support and the encouragement to really get into the community. So thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
But hey, enough about me. Let's talk about Marketo user groups. So, just to give everybody kind of a recap, right? So 1 hour, we're going to cover all the different Marketo user groups in the month of February. And the idea is if you're really busy and you didn't have time to go to them, then this is your session to be able to quickly grab that information and then come back to the YouTube channel if you missed anything, and we'll cover off everything that you need to know about the mugs so you can watch which ones you're interested in. So we have a YouTube channel that we've set up. All of the Marketo user group leaders around the world participate in this. And basically it's one channel. I set up a redirect at conversionstore.com/video that will take you to the channel. And you can subscribe to it. If you are viewing this on YouTube, just press the Marketo icon in the bottom right of your screen and you will get a subscribe notice. That immediately takes you into the YouTube channel, takes you to a point where you can subscribe and get invitations every time a new session is posted, basically. And I'm going to just mute everybody here on the call and then just kind of unmute. And bear with me one moment here. Okay. Okay, great. And so basically, feel free to come back to this YouTube channel at any point in time, and we'll continuously have new Marketo user group content that you can come back and reference. So a couple
I've definitely been sending real quick. I've been sending a lot of people to this YouTube channel, people who have expressed like, hey, I'm thinking about getting ready for the Marketo Certified Expert exam or whatever they're calling it now, whatever that acronym is. There's so much good content here. I always say, all right, this is a good place to start. And there's, look through the videos. There's a lot of stuff out there to study. So really good resource.
I think as well, just on a mugs.marketo.com, you can search by topic now, and I found that really useful. So another useful resource is not just the mugs.marketo Marketo to sign up, which is about the top of the slide. Also, searching by topic is really useful.
Oh, that's excellent. That's really good. So if you're looking for information on like personalization or dynamic content, you can search that, and then that's great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing on these mugs.marketo.com sessions is after, if you attended a session, and let's say you had to leave halfway through, there's usually this YouTube channel, the same YouTube channel that we're using is usually where all that content is also reposted there. So if you want to go in and let's say you're really interested in the videos for Milwaukee for some of the stuff that you're doing, Jay, and with Kelly, then you can go back and just look back at those old events, click on them, and you should have that specific recording for that given session. So it'll build up a really nice library for all of us to be able to learn on in the future too. And so, yes, if you haven't signed up to that, go to mugs.marketo.com. And then that's a great place to kind of sign up for upcoming sessions as well too, if you want to view some of the upcoming sessions that are happening in March. So speaking of upcoming opportunities, so our first slide here is really about Adobe Summit, which is on April 27th to the 28th. And because of COVID restrictions, it's going to be online. So just like last year, but also the neat thing about last year is that it was free. So normally it costs $2,000 to be able to attend an Adobe Summit session if it were in real life and in person. And you'd have to pay to fly out there, and you have to pay for your hotel and food and beverages. All that's included, and all of that is, there is no hotel that you have to go to, and you don't have to worry about food and beverages because you'll be at your place. And you can just log into summit.adobe.com, and we'll get in all the information from all sorts of different Adobe products in the Adobe Experience Cloud are available to be able to learn from. So all of the Marketo experts that you are used to seeing will be there. There'll be a whole ton of different learning topics that'll be available at this year's summit. And I would highly encourage you to go to summit.adobe.com now. All of those sessions are posted live, and you can start registering for which sessions are interesting to you that you want to be able to attend going forward. Are any specific sessions that Warren, Jay, that you have registered for already that you really want to highlight that people should keep an eye out for?
Nothing specifically, but yeah, I haven't signed up yet, to be fair, being perfectly honest. But I've heard from a few of the champions that it's not so hidden away like it was when they had to quickly turn it into a virtual session. I've heard that it's actually quite easy to find the Marketo specific sessions this time around. So that's some of the feedback I've heard, but I haven't actually signed up. So every time you share this slide, I'm like, oh God, I've got to do that.
Yeah, same here. I haven't registered yet or really even looked at the agenda, but I always make a point to do so. I mean, I loved going to the live event, the in-person event back when we were able to do that, and look forward to potentially doing that again. But I mean, even the virtual event last year was great. I mean, and the ability to just kind of go through, pick and choose which ones you want to do at your own time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, really nice.
I think one of the things that I like about Summit a lot of times is that there's a lot of new product development announcements. And then, of course, with Marketo having the extra boost of the power of Adobe Experience Cloud that's tied into it now, and some of the developments that are happening across the platform, I would make sure that you block off those days to attend, because a lot of those new announcements about some of the new product features that'll be coming out here in the next year get made at this conference. So it's definitely one that you want to connect, and especially, we're all marketers here, right? So we're trying to build, share a voice and an audience for our respective organizations. And, these new product features in a lot of ways are designed around those needs to be able to satisfy. Think of all the changes that have happened over the past year and a half in our marketplace via COVID. So we definitely want to be able to kind of put that into perspective as part of the reasons why you want to attend conferences like this, is to be on the cutting edge of those tactics to be able to respond to all the shifts that are happening out in the marketplace. And then kind of speaking to that as well too, I don't have a slide for it, but there's a Adobe there's a Marketo skills development session, if I remember correctly, and I think that's on March the 16th. And I apologize, I don't have a slide for that, but we should, we should put a bug in everybody's ear about that, because those are kind of hands-on instructional sessions, if I remember correctly. It's a smaller group of people. It's Marketo focused, if I remember correctly, but it's I think you should go to the marketo.com website. I'm sure they'll have a link to it, but it's called the Marketo Engage Skills
The
Development Session, isn't it?
Experience Makers Skill Exchange. I actually had a note to bring that up, and I have the link here. I'll share it in the chat.
Oh, good. Yes, please.
Yeah, and you can, or I should probably put this in the shameless plug thread on your Mops Pros channel. But I'm excited. I'm going to be one of the speakers for that event.
Oh, neat. Okay, tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can really tell you too much about what I'll be talking about. So basically that event altogether is 8 sessions. So it goes from like 11 to 2 Central Time. So it's pretty short, 8 sessions. A bunch of familiar names, and then also some people maybe who you haven't seen speak quite as much. Me included. But people like Amanda Thomas and like Sanford's doing a session on there. I think he's covering like velocity scripts and what else. But then the part that I'm going to be participating in is they chose like 4 Marketo users, and we each got to choose like a tip or a trick that we think might be useful to other Marketo users. And then we each get like 10 minutes to share and kind of demonstrate how to set it up. And then at the end, the audience, because it'd be like a live audience, they get to vote for their favorite. And I think the winner gets some kind of prize. But yeah, it'll be fun.
Oh, neat. Okay. So also shamelessly vote for Jay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sure they're all going to be great, but it's fun. This is yeah, it'll be, I think, pretty interesting to hear what everybody comes with.
Very cool. Okay, very cool. Well, I'm excited to see that for sure. And then we'll put a note. You know what I'll do is we'll put a note in the YouTube comments as well too. So if you're watching the video, just go down to the comments in YouTube, and we'll make sure that we have a link to that there as well. And we'll also include one here for Adobe Summit coming up. Okay, great. Well, let's dive right into the February events. I had a lot of different events that came in here. I'm always interested every year. We see like January comes in and it's sort of kind of a crawl. Everybody's trying to get back to work after the holidays. And then I feel like February, half of the country is snowed in, and if you're lucky to be Josh and Grace and Veronica in New Zealand, it's super hot and it's sunny, but for the rest of us, we have all this time that's available to be able to stay at home indoors in the warmth and watch some of these presentations and these MUG sessions. Where do we begin, Jay? Let's go with you first and talk about some of the ones that you've taken a look at and kind of recap some of those for us, if you could.
Yeah, definitely. So, first one on the list, the one that Houston put together, 5 things I wish I'd learned about Marketo. That was a session that Andy Carone did. And honestly, like anytime I see Andy did a session, that always draws my eye. She's always got like really good stuff to share. And just like her experience is amazing. And yeah, I mean, some of the things she talked about, it's like, okay, I've heard about that before. Some of it was like, oh, maybe I haven't heard about that before. But one of the things that I like about, these types of topics, like, 5 things I learned or what I wish I knew or whatever it was, it's like, even if you've heard about a specific thing or a trick, you hear it again and again, and every time you hear it, you kind of pick up like a new little idea or take away something else. And so I think it was really good. I mean, she talked a little bit about how to set up webhooks, and I've been, kind of the user of webhooks. Honestly, I've never created one myself, and she kind of did like step by step, like this is how you create a webhook. Honestly, it's the first time I've ever seen that end to end. And it like webhooks to me, at least, were kind of this like intimidating thing that I never really knew how to do. And it made it seem like not so intimidating anymore. Like, hey, I could maybe do that. And it was pretty inspiring. She talked about using some of those custom columns for program reports. So, your typical like people report in analytics kind of shows like how many people were added to your database per month. Doesn't really give you a lot of information. Like, you can kind of divide that or drill down using smart lists for some of those custom columns. And that's one of those things that I think, again, like a lot of us have probably heard about that. And then if you don't use it, you sort of forget about it. And, but those are really useful and really flexible. Another thing she talked about was, something pretty simple, but mass approving landing pages. I was kind of like, all right, I think I knew that, but I swear last week I manually approved 20 landing pages one by one. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm not doing that again. This is easy to go mass approve. And, so just another little, sorry, go ahead.
I remember the one thing that she was talking about too, that I always forget is, being able to change the columns when you're looking in Design Studio and you go to emails about how to get the URLs, right? And I forgot that there's like a field, or there's a column that you can add that'll show you the URLs that you were for all those landing pages. How many times do you get asked, oh, hey, can you make a change to this landing page? And whoever the user is only gives you the end URL, not where to find it in Marketo, and you have to go back and figure out where is that in my Marketo instance? What name did I give it?
Yeah, that was a really good point as well. And then I think the last thing she kind of talked about was just the use of trigger tokens and how like simple but really useful they are. I think a lot of people think of trigger tokens like purely for interesting moments and syncing those over to Salesforce. Or your CRM, but they can be used for a lot of different things. And you can get really creative with those. It just kind of makes you think about what else you could be using those for.
Yeah. It was there's so many good sessions that are coming out with from her. That's a really good one. Warren, do you want to cover off one? What's a good session that you caught this past month here?
Yeah, I mean, I caught the Raleigh MUG actually, and that one's not recorded. But what I would say with that is that I've missed the Raleigh MUG a couple of times at the tail end of last year, but they had a show and tell, if I remember correctly, where someone literally bought their Marketo problem, and they were able to share with everyone on the call in their Marketo instance their specific problem they were having. With I think this one was it was sales alerts, multi-level.
It was like lead routing.
Yeah, I think it. Yeah, and what was interesting is that everyone can then chip in and help. So if you have a specific problem, I recommend that Raleigh MUG and just being able to bring that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that one too, because it was interesting to see, there were, I think if I remember it correctly, there were several really long smart campaigns that were built as part of the, was how do you basically send out sales alerts, but using a staggered and non-standard cadence for them. So it wasn't something where you could put it into an engagement program, and it wasn't necessarily something where the flexibility might not be the same. So between alert 1 and alert 2, you might have 3 days. Between alert 2 and alert 3, you might have 5 days. Between alert 3 and alert 4, you'd have 9 days. It's not a consistent cadence to basically build off of, right?
Yeah, I think as well, I more appreciated the format of, like, if you're really stuck, having everyone being able to, there was a lot of respect within the group to able to equally contribute to that problem and ask questions. And for the person who submitted that show and tell, it offers a huge amount of value to be able to do that and know that it's not recorded. So you can literally bring any Marketo problem to that team of people. I just like that format. So yeah.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like the champion bar at Jay, we were talking about like the previous Marketo summits and Adobe summits where you could walk up to the champion bar at the middle of the convention center and talk with all these different people, and it felt like that. Like it was neat to kind of, I remember being on there with you, Warren, and like you had one piece of advice, I had one piece of advice, there were three other people that were there that had different ways to tackle the same problem, and it was so interesting to kind of hear the different ways to go about it, that that you had choices to be able to kind of compare and contrast how you would attack that specific issue.
Yeah, that's okay. And while I'm on the topic as well, I should highlight that it's a similar format to the New York MUG. Michael, I know you go to that one as well, but I think now that the format is that you can submit questions to there as well, so you can have a similar setup with Sanford and Inga, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. So there were some really interesting questions that came up there over the past couple of weeks. So, our session last week, Sandy and Inga are kind of going through some questions around dynamics and when to use a sandbox, and about syncing a Marketo sandbox to a CRM sandbox, and some of the nuances around if you inherit an existing Marketo instance and you inherit an existing Marketo sandbox instance, and then there are changes that need to be made because you're seeing errors that are coming in on the sandbox. Do you work through those errors, or maybe it's just better to just refresh the sandbox and call your CSM and say, just can you wipe my sandbox and give me a brand new one, and we're going to do this with Salesforce UAT, and there are different options to be able to use that. And then the other piece that came up in terms of a discussion was maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This wonderful user in Australia who came on the New York office hours, and she was talking about how to handle, if I remember correctly, it was attribution, but for multiple currencies. So what do you do when you have a Salesforce opportunity that comes in yen, in Japanese yen, that is then pegged against an opportunity with the US line of business for their company, but you have to report back to Australian stakeholders, if I remember correctly, right? Like, does that wind up showing up in Australian dollars, US dollars, or Japanese yen? I don't work in that space. I don't have that many international clients over the years, but it was neat hearing some of those nuances from how you deal with that, that type of reporting issue, and how the dollars and cents, or the pound sterling, and or yen, or whatever currency that you're using, how that kind of matches back from a Marketo standpoint, right? So lots of interesting stuff that's going on there. Jay, let's go to you next. What's another one that we want to highlight?
Yeah, another one that I watched the recording of this one. It was the San Francisco one. Amy Goldfine over there had Joshua Chen from, what was the name? Pure Storage, I think, company he was from. And the theme of the mug was basically how to automate your marketing automation. And the stuff that he was talking about, I was just like, wow, this guy is very bright. Like he's basically, he talked about how they kind of automated their entire intake ticketing system using ServiceNow, Workato. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Workato or Workato, and Salesforce and Marketo, and how basically everything is sort of triggered from that ServiceNow ticket submission. All the information pretty much that they need is required in that initial intake, and is sort of just fed into all of these other platforms that kind of run the execution part of that request. And it's something that caught my attention because we're actually looking at sort of revamping some things where I work, and our IT department uses ServiceNow. I think they're kind of trying to push the rest of the organization to go that route. And, Josh had some, I guess, words of warning for that. Like, make sure that if you have a ticketing system that you're running, that, you should have full control over it. Don't get caught in some situation where, you're kind of locked into what IT says, you should be doing and things like that. So, because I think, maybe he had a little bit of a, hindsight is 2020 moment there. But yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, Warren, I think you were in that one too. I think I saw you in the questions.
Yeah, and I was all over those questions especially with David in there as well from Workato, because he was kind of working with Jay. Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
He was working with them, yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was a really good one. I mean, not something that a lot of people can just like take away and implement right away. But there's personally, I've seen a lot and heard a lot about Workato. Haven't used it, but it kind of made me think like, okay, maybe I should go look into that a little bit more and learn about this tool, because clearly there's a lot of power behind it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was gonna add, like, the people on that call were like, can answer some of those questions, but I would also say you can do similar things with Trade.io as well that does that sort of things. And if you really look at some of the APIs, like the Salesforce campaign creation APIs, you can, it's not difficult to do. It's just that the bit that the ServiceNow does is just create that front end. So if you've got a centralized model, and people can log those tickets, having the campaign creation, and even if you're using project tools like Asana, that has an API that's relatively easy that clones tasks. So if you really look into it, it's not massively difficult, but as Jay highlighted, it's going to be a fairly political thing around how do we transition people to just use this almost like a ticket log system, or move from a request base onto something like ServiceNow and then connect all those bits together. It's going to get a lot of involvement from IT, but that's a super interesting area where I feel like we have a lot more MUG discussions come up on the back of that.
Yeah, I agree with
that.
Yeah,
and Warren, go ahead, Michael.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I actually find it interesting that we're talking about this right now, because it kind of ties back to that very first MUG we talked about with Andy Carone about webhooks. That API endpoint that you're usually pointing a webhook to uses the same type of technology, the same type of JavaScript object notation to be able to kind of write values back and forth. And I agree. I think that one of the things that's really made Marketo stand out is that we've always had the largest library of software vendors that Marketo integrates with. I think there's I think since the Adobe acquisition, it's climbed closer to 1,000 different vendors that you can integrate with. But even if there isn't a formal integration with them, you can always use that webhook functionality. You can always use tools like Workato and Trade.io, and there are other middleware providers that allow you to be able to kind of send a post or a get webhook or some of the other HTTP sends between those different applications. So really, Marketo is sort of that hub in the hub and spoke model of your MarTech stack, where you can use that to connect to all sorts of different types of tools. And I think that once you get over that barrier as a practitioner, and you kind of figure out how to be able to make those connections, really you have an unbounded opportunity of tools that you can connect to and offer to your different clients or your different audiences.
Mm-hmm. So, definitely. Yeah, that was just an impressive discussion. I was just kind of blown away. Like, wow, they have quite the process over there. So, Josh, if you see this, well done.
and hats off to Amy Goldfein, by the way, as the MUG leader in that group too, for always coming up with really interesting presentations, and love some of the things that she's done there. We're running close on time here, and I apologize. I think maybe I got us off to a bit of a slower start here, but some other neat ones that came up, and maybe we can do these in kind of rapid fire bullet points. Salt Lake City, great session, Trent and Andrew on that. Warren and I both were lucky enough to win the Wheel of Marketo contest for I think
Oh
I
yeah, I
won like
forgot
3 or
about
4 of them, and then I can't. Warren, how many have you
that.
won
Yeah.
now?
I don't know, but it's not fixed. I promise.
Yeah.
It's definitely fixed for you, Michael. But I don't know.
So Andrew's birthday was a couple of days ago, and he's like, "Hey, for my birthday, I spun the wheel, and your name came up." But
Yeah.
so we both gave our prizing away, but one of the things that they do is Marketo. So one thing, if you attend the Salt Lake City user group, they usually give away prizing, and it's like $25 Amazon cards and things like that. So it's aside from having really great content and really great guys to talk to, they do these Marketo shots or shorts, and they'll give you bullet points of little tips that you can implement in your Marketo instance. So that's a neat one. Any other rapid fire ones we can quickly bounce off that we looked at this month?
I'll play the other mug on the when
Oh, you're
You
breaking
breaking
up a
up, or
little
is that me?
bit. No,
Okay.
it's Warren. Warren, you're moving, right? So fair notice, right? That just we've got a little bit of connectivity issues there. But let me jump in for a second
One,
and go
one,
ahead, Jay.
yeah. I would say one of the others that I was the other Houston one that they did on the 18th. Shara Riga. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that name, but um, she and another presenter, and I'm really forgetting the name at this point, did a really nice presentation on product interest scoring. I thought it was really well done. I like the structure of how they presented it. It was sort of like, here's what it is, here's why it's important, here's how you can use it. And what I love the most is they actually showed the smart campaigns behind how to build it. And to me, that's how you learn. I'm a visual learner. And they really laid it all out. So if that's something that you're interested in, setting up product interest scoring, I think that would be a really good place to start.
That's a good one.
I would also say that both those Houston Mug recordings are up now as well. So you can go and view them on both the YouTube and the mugs.marketo that shows them.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was at Charlotte, so I'll talk really briefly about that one. That was interesting. The speakers on that one were talking about how they were able to get creative with some of their events. So, they had digital events, but it wasn't, I mean, this event is a fairly straightforward event to put on with one Zoom channel for us, but they're doing like a 3 or 4 day conference. And their approach was really interesting. They had a fellow on staff, and basically their firm focuses on, I think it was healthcare events, if I remember correctly, the vertical. But they had a fellow on staff who came from a radio production background or a video production background, and so he had used all these technologies. He had all of this filming and lighting equipment, and it really talked about how they evolved their event offering to use different platforms. So they built a virtual, like a trade show floor, basically, if you will. I think they had about 300 different vendors that were in that trade show floor, and everything happened online. So there were actual video presentations like what you're seeing here in the MUG Roundup, but then they also had like a trade show floor, and then they had a session for networking, and they tried to recreate as many of the experiences that you would find if you went to an in-person a conference or an event, and they went behind the scenes too, to be able to show exactly how they architected some of this thing out, and what they evolved into, some of the the first time that they did it, some of the missteps that they had happened, and then some of the ways that they adjusted for that going forward a little further into 2020. And so that was a really good session to watch, and hats off to Christine and to Courtney for putting on the Charlotte Mug.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention Kimberly Gallitz was the other one that talked about product interest scoring. Didn't want to leave her out.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, anytime you get a chance to learn from Kimberly Cowlitz, that's a good one. That's a great speaker to have. Can we talk a
Yeah.
little bit about the foreign language? Not the foreign language, the ones that are non-English language sessions. So I know all of us speak English as a first language, but we're seeing great content that's coming in from Paris, from Japan. The Montreal MUG is bilingual, so it is in English, and you can attend those, but lots of content that's coming in from all sorts of different backgrounds and different parts of the world as well too now in the user group community. So can we talk a little bit about some of the events that we see here?
Yeah, I mean, the Montreal mug that was in February had another interesting topic that I hadn't really seen before, which was I hadn't seen before in the mugs very recently, which is the Marketo and the website integration, talking about a more strategic elements there. And I think with those more strategic ones, it kind of prompts you for different ideas on just experimenting with your setup or raising questions that you hadn't really raised before within your team. And I think I really like those strategic ones because then you'll often find with these ones that it brings up some more interesting discussions within that mug as well when it comes to the Q&A, because it's like, well, actually, what about this strategy? And then different people input. So that was the Montreal mug. And you said that one was bilingual, right, Michael?
Yeah, so everybody on that one, I used to live in Toronto and the next province over for quite a long time, but everybody in Montreal, they speak English and French. So all three of the leaders of that
Mm-hmm.
Marketo user group. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so they work with the Paris mug sometimes. You see them do some content together. And then the other piece too, just talking about the Japanese one. So you see, what do we have? One, two, three, four, I think, Japanese mugs. So neat thing about the Japan, everybody, inside the Marketo user group community knows that the Japanese mugs are the largest mugs by head count. But inside of the Japanese mug, you'll see that there's different sessions that exist. So you'll see there's February the 17th, we have a Marketo Foundations event. So if you're new to Marketo, that's a great one to be able to learn some of the basics about Marketo. Teleketo is around a specific industry, if I remember correctly. And if I remember correctly, I think that's around technology related firms and how they use Marketo. And then, there's more generalist ones that talk a little bit, again, kind of the strategic conversations about how do you plan for the new year, right? What are some of the things that you want to do strategically to make use out of your Marketo instance and marketing automation and in your overall marketing communications plan? So there's a lot of variety there. And hopefully, there are people in Japan that are able to kind of watch this or translate this session and that we're talking about right now, and then make use out of that for their Marketo learning curve.
I would also say about those Japanese mugs quickly is that they're often show and tell ones. So even if really you don't understand the language fully, like you've got baby basic Japanese, which some people have got, you can understand from what they're showing on screen because they're in Marketo sharing you, like particularly that Marketo Foundations one that you talked about. They're literally sharing in Marketo on the forms, adjusting bits.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's definitely helpful, and definitely one of those things. I think we're seeing a theme here for this month in February, that there's a lot more content that's coming up that's like that. That's very much instructional content. Um, okay, well, we're over by a little bit, so I think we should probably cap it there. But if you're interested in any of these topics, obviously mugs.marketo.com is kind of the definitive list of Marketo user groups that are available for anybody to be able to join. You don't have to have a Marketo a login to be able to attend these. Anybody can attend, so definitely worth doing that. And then just so we want to thank Jay for his time being able to kind of contribute to this panel. And for next month, Our next session is on April the 1st. It's not an April Fool's Day joke, but we'll be covering off all of the March Marketo User Group sessions. We're going to have our speakers lined up for that. So Courtney Toby, who is the co-leader for the Charlotte Marketo User Group, and Warren, your co-host, Chloe Pott from the Europe Virtual Marketo User Group, will be our hosts for the April 1st roundup, covering everything that was all the Marketo User Groups that happened in March.
Cool.
So,
yeah.
So Jay, thank you again for your time. We really appreciate you, and we appreciate everybody else that's participating in this. And Jay, we'd love to have you come back again and join us. And then obviously, your co-host Kelly Trentow. Jay, tell us about your next Marketo User Group session. What do you guys have lined up that you're working on in Milwaukee?
Well, we don't have one scheduled yet, but I'll probably have to give Kelly a call after this and get something on the calendar. We've been trying to keep like an every other month cadence. This environment's just throwing us off a little bit, but I think we'll probably have one coming up. Either like mid to late April or May, and we'll have to see what we can get on the calendar then.
Okay, excellent. All right, guys. Well, thank you again for your time, and look forward to seeing you. Warren, any parting thoughts before we go?
Only that I hope my internet connection will get better soon, so I can be a little bit more active. But that's my only thought.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to have everybody on here. Thanks again for your time. You guys have yourself a great day. Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.